The ocean's surface is a bright, familiar world of motion and warmth, but as you sink past the crashing waves, that environment rapidly fades into a massive, hostile void where the temperature drops to near freezing and pressure builds enough to crush an unprotected vessel. In the top 200 meters, a region known as the epipelagic zone, sunlight easily penetrates the water. This light fuels tiny drifting organisms called phytoplankton. They act much like plants on land, capturing the sun's energy to form the base of the entire global marine food chain. But this vibrant, sunlit layer is practically a razor-thin veneer. The vast majority of the ocean space exists in total, permanent darkness, making up an environment so immense and remote that we know more about the surface of the moon than we do about our own seafloor. To understand how life exists down there, we are going to drop nearly 11,000 meters to the Mariana Trench. As we descend, we will descend the light and warmth, revealing how organisms adapt to the tightest constraints on the planet. Down in the deep ocean, survival is a constant war against crushing pressure, freezing cold temperatures, and near-total starvation. Surviving it all demands radical biological engineering. This diagram shows how light behaves between 200 and 1,000 meters deep, the twilight zone. As sunlight descends, longer, warmer colors, reds and yellows, are quickly absorbed. Only the shorter blue wavelengths manage to reach these depths, leaving the ocean bathed in a dim, fading glow. With light so incredibly scarce, stealth becomes a massive biological advantage. Up to 80% of the animals here produce their own light through chemical reactions in their cells. Some use this bioluminescence to perfectly match the faint light coming from above, becoming effectively invisible to predators below, while others use glowing lures to ambush unsuspecting prey. The scarcity of energy produces strange life forms, like the siphonophore. While it might look like a single floating jellyfish, it is actually a living colony made up of thousands of tiny, genetically identical individuals called zooids, each performing specific tasks like hunting, defending, or reproducing. To survive the increasing pressure without burning precious calories, the siphonophore relies on water-filled tissues. Because water is highly incompressible, this structure gives the colony neutral buoyancy, allowing it to float and withstand the crushing weight of the deep ocean with virtually zero physical effort. In this dim boundary, survival rarely favors the strong or the fast. Instead, it rewards profound energy efficiency and the ability to manipulate light. Past 1,000 meters, we hit the midnight zone. Sunlight stops completely. The water temperature drops to an average of just 4 degrees Celsius, and the weight of the water stacking up above exerts a pressure of over 100 atmospheres. This diagram illustrates the physiological threat of depth. If an animal had air-filled spaces, like a human lung or a fish swim bladder, the ocean's weight would collapse it instantly. Instead, animals here are built out of soft, liquid-filled tissues to withstand the immense pressure. To further protect their internal structures, the cells of deep-sea organisms contain specialized molecules called piezolates. These tiny compounds act like microscopic support beams, bracing the cell membranes and preventing vital proteins from buckling under the extreme force. But pressure is only part of the threat. Down here, there are no plants to start a food chain. Nutrition relies entirely on marine snow, a sparse, slow-moving rain of dead plankton and organic waste sinking from the surface waters miles above. This specific combination of mere starvation, icy temperatures, and surprisingly high levels of dissolved oxygen triggers an evolutionary quirk called deep-sea gigantism. In order to travel further for food and store more energy, animals grow much slower, live much longer, and reach massive sizes. The giant isopod is a prime example of this slow, steady growth, developing a heavily armored body to protect itself on the barren seafloor. But the ultimate result of these conditions is the giant squid. By maximizing low energy output over long lifespans, these elusive predators can grow tentacles stretching up to 60 feet in length. The midnight zone warps the normal proportions of biology, stretching lifespans and anatomies so these animals can squeeze every possible calorie out of a starving environment. Descending between 4,000 and 6,000 meters, the seafloor finally opens up into the abyssal plain. It is a completely flat, near-freezing expanse that covers roughly half of our planet's total surface area, making it the largest continuous habitat on Earth. Life out on this desert plain is incredibly sparse. To conserve energy, creatures like the delicate tripod fish stand completely motionless on long, stilt-like fins, quietly waiting in the dark for a stray meal to drift by. This extreme quiet is only broken by rare windfalls of energy. When a massive marine mammal dies at the surface, its carcass descends through the ocean layers, eventually hitting the barren seafloor in an event known as a whale fall. This single arrival delivers a sudden abundance of food. Over several months, wandering scavengers strip away the soft tissue. Once the skeleton is exposed, specialized bacteria move deep inside the massive bones to break down stored lipids, releasing chemical compounds called sulfites. Through extreme opportunism, the residents of the abyss turn a solitary death from the surface into a concentrated, thriving ecosystem that can sustain life for decades. Below the abyssal plain lies the final layer, the hadal zone. This environment is dominated by oceanic trenches, the most famous being the Mariana Trench. It is a massive, V-shaped chasm carved over millions of years by tectonic subduction, as the heavy Pacific plate slowly grinds downward beneath the Mariana plate. Measuring depths this extreme took decades of physical labor. Early sailors simply dropped weighted ropes over the sides of their ships, while 19th century expeditions like the HMS Challenger dragged thousands of meters of physical cable across the seafloor. This data map shows how modern multi-beam sonar eventually replaced physical cables. By sending out wide fans of sound and measuring the exact time it takes for the echo to return, researchers finally revealed the hidden ridges and scars of the deep ocean. Physically reaching the bottom of this trench, a slot-shaped valley called the Challenger Deep, required heavy engineering. In 1960, humans made their first descent into the 11,000-meter abyss aboard the heavily reinforced Trieste bathyscaphe. In 2012, filmmaker James Cameron completed a solo descent to the same location, utilizing thick hulls and advanced materials to protect the interior cabin from over 1,000 atmospheres of pressure. It took over a century of technological evolution just to afford humans a brief, dangerous visit to a crushing environment that deep-sea organisms have effortlessly navigated for millions of years. At the absolute bottom of the trench, the pressure climbs high enough to collapse standard living cells, yet life persists even here. Tiny, shrimp-like crustaceans survive by secreting a specialized aluminum-based gel that fortifies their exoskeletons against the crushing weight. Despite these extreme dives, only a small fraction of the ocean floor has been mapped in high resolution. Uncovering the rest will heavily rely on underwater drones and remotely operated vehicles capable of staying down far longer than any human crew. This thriving, resilient frontier regulates global carbon cycles and monitors shifting tectonic plates, defining the extreme limits of what life can endure.